SCP-856. SCP document. No restrictions. All levels of security allowed to access this document. Object class is completely safe. Status: reintegrated into society. Thursday, October 1st, 2021. Location of original sighting. Location of original sighting. Near rock/mud tunnel on the Cambrazon-Toltec Scenic Railway. Specific location found in front of the President Garfield Memorial on the side of the track. Near the side of the track. (10:29 p.m.) All volunteers have gone home for the day on this famous, unassuming railway in Colorado. The very last train of the day. A one-man inspection car goes down the track from Antonito Station, destination Chama, New Mexico. Then turn around and return a small motor-driven vehicle to the shed. But no, this is no normal routine night. Everything goes fine until the car comes out of rock tunnel, and on the track near the President Garfield Memorial stands the figure of a man. As the lights of the car shine on him, the brakes are put on. The man with a noticeable beard and dressed in 19th century clothing is confused by his surroundings and this wondrous strange machine in front of him. This is SCP This is SCP-856, otherwise known as Mr. President. After picking up the man, they both return to the small motor-driven vehicle, as the man has a ton of questions about this newfound vehicle that he is very impressed by, like its size, power, and more. He asks the man, is this really what has become of the steam engines of old? Have they all been replaced by this? The man chuckles a little. No, steam engines are very much still around. We even have some in the sheds up the line. At this point, the man had turned around the inspection cart, more interested in taking the man into Antonito Station for questioning by the police. They had both sat in the motor-driven vehicle and returned to Antonito, Colorado, the station. Both men proceeded to get out. The man, dressed in 19th century clothing, wanted to see the steam engines, and so they did. They looked in the sheds for a little while, but then the police showed up. The man showed no resistance and went peacefully. When they got the man to the police station, they asked him if he had any ID, and the one he showed them must have been over 50 years old. The police questioned the man, "Why do you even have this? This is very much out of date." The man realizes just how much time has passed by, and he says, "Out of date? How's that possible?" These men think that the man is some sort of reenactor, or someone that has gone insane, or been hit in the head, or something like that. But there was no reason for this man to be out this far. There was no houses within miles of where he was. The only place that he could have come from was Osier, the middle stop between Chama and Antonito. But that was impossible. They looked at the man's ID and nearly fell over in shock. They couldn't believe it. Was this really him? This couldn't be real. It had to be some kind of reenactor or something. The two men just walked out of the interrogation room and just extremely confused about the events that have just ran over them. Fortunately, an SCP Foundation was being an undercover police officer that night, and soon the man disappeared from the interrogation room, never to be seen again by the police. Soon after, he was taken to the SCP Foundation, where they questioned him even more. They asked him what year that he thought this was. He said 1910. The men just laughed. They too at first thought that the man was a reenactor of some kind and was incredibly devoted to his role, but a quick check at his wallet revealed that it was over 50 years old by a company that had went out of business. This was becoming way too convincing. They asked the man if he was a reenactor, and he said no, but they questioned him more. He still said no. He was getting noticeably scared by these men, and so they laid off him on the questions for a bit. They asked him who he thought he was. "Why, don't you recognize your president?" the man said. "But, sir, you aren't the president." He has a visibly confused look on his face. The men tell him the staggering news to him that there is a new president all these years later. The man has no idea what has happened in these past years that he has missed out on. The invention of the faster and better car, the diesel engines for more faster and transportation on railways, trucks, planes. This new world is very confusing to this man. Eventually, with some amnestics and also reintegration process, he was able to be classified as safe and reintegrated into society. But not before being asked a ton of questions and being updated on what has happened in society soon. After all these years. So, that's pretty much it. He is a safe man. He is not causing any problems. So, we just decided to release him into society. Of course, he still thinks, of course, he is the man himself, but a clone. Somehow, he's a clone. Out of pure nothing. The real man is buried 6 feet under in a graveyard in Washington, while this man that seems to have all of his memories and everything was found all the way in Colorado on the railway tracks of a famous railway that no one would have suspected. No one still knows how this happened, but they don't really need to because, well, the man is very docile and safe, so he was able to be reintegrated into society very quickly. Of course, every once in a while, he'll have questions, call back, those kind of things. It is astounding that one of our most famous presidents for, some reasons, being assassinated, was found on a railway track at an unsuspecting location. Well, not really unsuspecting, it was his own memorial. This man This man was one of our presidents. He was President James Garfield. And, well, he really did. He was great then, and he is great now. I myself have had the pleasure of talking to this man, although that should be impossible, as this is 2021, and this man died over 50 years ago. This was the story of this immaculate man who was once one of our greatest leaders, who turned up in one of the most unconditional circumstances ever found. Of course, as he had no anomalous features about him, he was allowed to reintegrate into society and is now living a happy and peaceful life. And I think that says something about some people. Some people are good people who can be reintegrated into society and also have a new lease on life, deserve a second chance. Others don't. Maybe that is why President James Garfield lives again, instead of staying dead in the ground. And yes, we have checked, the body of the president is still there in the grave. So this is definitely a clone, but it's an exact replica of the man. This is really all the information we know about him. I mean, what else is there to know? We already knew what his life was before this, but what about after? Well, we'll just have to find out. I mean, he's a regular citizen, a part of society now. He doesn't need more questioning. We already know everything he knew. He spontaneously appeared on some railway tracks in an unknown region for him. Well, at least he didn't know about that part of the railway yet. And he actually took it very well. This man was one of our presidents. And to have him living around us, even if we don't know it, because, well, obviously, he had to look at least somewhat different from, well, yeah, James Garfield, because, well, it's James Garfield. At least someone's going to notice. So, with a quick beard shave and some modern clothes, he was sent out into society to have another adventure of his own. A friendly man, a friendly cause, and a second lease on life. He was a pleasure to talk to, a pleasure to be around. And I think this is case closed. One of the friendliest SCPs I've ever met, besides, well, 999. And yeah, pretty much that's it. Well, he's a very famous figure, so needless to say, we had to change up his look and whatnot, update him on things, but now I'm kind of repeating myself. I'm going to end it here before I start repeating myself again, but it's just immaculate and insane of how this man just showed up out of the middle of nowhere with no explanation, with no great evil or evil at all in this man. He proved to be very kind, generous, and friendly all around. And I personally hope that he makes it out there in society. Coast case. Object class, completely safe. Status, completely reintegrated in society. Other info, unknown. Security protocols, none.